welcome to another video. Welcome to my July wrap-up. So this month I read quite a lot. Actually, it's been my best reading month yet. I read 17 books, which isn't my top number of books. That was March, where I read like 21, 22 or something. But I did read my top number of pages, which was 6,996 pages, which is a lot of pages. I didn't have any DNFs this month either, although arguably I probably should have. So yeah, I've got a really wide selection here. I've got a lot of books piled up in front of me that I'm going to go through. My ratings range from a 1.5 star up to a 5 star. So again, we've got a very mixed bag, but I would say most of the books are in the 4.5 and 5 star, so I feel like it's been overall a positive month. This month in July, I was trying to finish off series, or at least make progress in series. I will try and link my series vlog somewhere if it ever uploads. I've been trying to get it to upload for 3 days now. So there's that. It's not that it's like super huge, it's just that I've been at my parents in Devon and their internet shit. But anywho, so I've got a lot of series, I've got a lot of final books and sequels in here, and maybe that is an indication on why the books were working so well for me this month, that I was reading sequels, I was reading books where I was already invested in the world. Don't know. Let's get started. Anyway, where am I going to start? So the first book that I read in July was a very highly anticipated book for me, and that was The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. I love Leigh Bardugo. I am a big fan of her writing. The Grishaverse is so-so. Six of Crows is one of my favourite series of all time. I think Ninth House and Hellbent, I want to actually reread them because I don't feel like I gave them the fairest of fair chances. But again, I really like what they're doing. So I was excited by The Familiar. I was let down by The Familiar. This one I gave 3 stars. I just found it was lacking so much of the Leigh Bardugo magic, in that normally her characters are outstanding. I can't actually remember the names of the characters in this book, and I read it a month ago. The plot was a bit so-so, the setting was a bit boring, and I just found that this dragged. It just didn't seem to ever get going, and the plot never really kicked into that kind of high gear where I was expecting things to happen. And again, if you think of books like Grishaverse or Six of Crows or Ninth House, the plot happens and it's action-packed and there is stuff happening, and you are, whether or not you're intrigued by the characters, you're intrigued by the plot. And I was just bored through most of this, and to be honest, I probably would have DNF'd it, except the fact that it's Leigh Bardugo. So yeah, a little bit sad about this one, if I'm totally honest. 3 stars for The Familiar. Next we read, I finished off the Greenbone saga with Jade Legacy. I have a read and vlog for this one where I am just crying my eyes out. 5 stars, obsessed, screaming, crying, throwing up. I was absolutely obsessed. I have nothing more to say, to be totally honest. This book was incredible. I loved it. Part of me kind of wants to go back and like reread the whole series. I'm very excited to see what else Fonda Lee comes out with. This just wrapped up in the way that I just loved, and honestly I feel like this series got better and better. I think I gave Jade City 4 stars, Jade War 4.5, and then Jade Legacy was 5 stars. Like, no complaints. Absolutely loved it. Fantastic. We then had a stream of 4.5 stars. Like I said, actually really good start to the month. So I read Latay by Darcy Littlebadger. This one I gave 4.5 stars. I thought it was beautiful. I really loved the storytelling. I loved the use of mythology. I loved the dog. Yeah, it's one of those where I didn't really know what the plot was going to be when I went into it. I didn't really know what it was about. Even reading it, it kind of surprised me because, again, well, I didn't know what it was about, but I wasn't really expecting a kind of ghost story, but I loved it. It was brilliant. I did have a few critiques about it. I felt like the characters acted very, very young. I felt like they were written more like they were sort of 14-year-olds rather than 18-year-olds. But that didn't impact my enjoyment of the story, so 4.5 stars. Next we've got the River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross, another 4.5 stars. I had a fantastic time with this one. This is a book that's been kind of languishing on my shelves for years. When did it come out? It came out a while ago. Why am I looking this up? It's been on my shelves for at least 2 years. It came in an Illumicrate box. But yeah, absolutely stunning. I had a really, really fantastic time with this one. I'm excited to get to the sequel. I think I might just audiobook the sequel because I can't seem to find a physical copy of it easily. But had a great time. Highly recommend. And the next 4.5 star was The Trouble with Peace by Jo Abercrombie. So this is book 2 in the second series in the in the First Law series. This is book 2 in the Age of Madness trilogy. Very confusing. 4.5 stars. I had a fantastic time. I really liked getting to know our characters some more, seeing what they were doing. So many of them made so many mistakes and did things that I was just like, don't do that, no, you know better than this. They did not. I'm excited and nervous to see where book 3 is going to go, which I'm going to be reading this month. So yeah, had a great time with The Trouble with Peace. Then the last 4.5 star on my pile of 4.5 stars is Heartless by Elsie Silver. Again, had a great time with this one. I binge read this one in a day. Again, if you notice, everything that I've spoken about so far has been fantasy. I was feeling a bit fantasied out, so I needed a little bit of a palate cleanser. Picked up Heartless. Fantastic, great time. This one I gave 4.5 stars. Like I said, I read it in one sitting, so it's always going to be a high rating. I do so yeah, 4.5 stars. I loved it. I do feel like Cade is not going to be my favourite of the brothers, just like Rhett from book 1 isn't going to be my favourite of the brothers. I liked their stories, but I didn't think, yes, I'm obsessed with you. I'm very excited to read Jasper's story. I feel like he could be one of my faves. He just has that feeling. But yeah, had a really, really fun time reading this one. 4.5 stars, highly recommend. Really enjoying this series. Nothing more to say. Next, we get really into the series that I was trying to read this month with Girls of Fate and Fury by Natasha Yang. This is book 3 in the Girls of Paper and Fire series. I gave this one 3.5 stars. I had a good time with it. I loved Girls of Paper and Fire. I found book 2, which I can't remember the name of, Girls of Storm and Shadow. I found it a little bit flat. This one did bring me back everything that I loved from book 1, but it wasn't quite as, I'm going to say magical, but I don't actually mean the use of magic. It wasn't quite as impressive as book 1. So 3.5 stars. I do also think that part of that rating is I am the problem, because I read books 1 and 2 in 2019 and I have not picked up book 3 until 2024. So it's been 5 years since I read books 1 and 2. If I had read this one when it came out, which I think was like in 2020 or 2021, something like that. If I'd read this one when it came out, you know, after reading the other 2 when I was more into YA fantasy and enjoying that world and that series and being immersed in it, then this one could potentially have had a higher rating, but I didn't, so it didn't. 3.5 stars, still a good rating. Next we have another 5-star read, which is Heartstopper Volume 4 by Alice Oseman. I mean, really, who's surprised? Heartstopper's 5 stars. Like, it's always going to be 5 stars. I adored this one. I really loved the mental health conversations that we have in this one. I really loved the eating disorder representation. And I just thought everything was handled so sensitively, everything was just done beautifully, and as always, it was fantastic. I loved it. I really have nothing else to say, I just loved it. I am purposely reading Heartstopper slowly. I'm not sure when volume 6 is coming out, but I don't want to have like binge read everything and then be waiting for volume 6. Right now, I could have picked up volume 5 straight away, but I know that it's there waiting for me, and I'll get to it later when it's there, when it's ready, and it's a good time. But had a great time. 5 stars. Then we get into the Jacqueline Wilson books. So for the last few months, I've been doing a Jacqueline Wilson kind of reading project where I've been reading books by Jacqueline Wilson. And this month were her YA books. So I started with a book that's been on my TBR for a long time, that I really love the sound of, and that is Baby Love. And I am so glad that I read this book. I'm so glad that I actually started with it as well. I gave this one 4.5 stars. I thought this book was fantastic. This one follows our main character in 1960 who gets pregnant. She ends up then being sent away to a like mothers and children home to see out her pregnancy, have the baby, and then is kind of being heavily persuaded / forced into giving up said child. She does not want to give up her baby. What I really appreciate with this one, our main character is sexually assaulted. She didn't know what she was doing when this boy had sex with her. She didn't kind of consent to that. It was rape. And what I really appreciated with this one is that there is a author's note at the back about consent, and about, you know, teenage pregnancy as well. And yeah, absolutely fantastic. I had a really, really good time reading this one. However, the other 2 Jacqueline Wilson books I read this month, I did not have such a good time with. We then went on to Kiss, which I gave 2.5 stars. This one didn't offend me. I just felt like it had aged badly. So in this one, we're following this boy and this girl who are best friends. She has always fancied him. She thinks that they are boyfriend and girlfriend. She thinks they are going to get married. He is in fact gay, and he fancies his male friend. And it's just that sort of, the thing is it's not a coming out story. It's more, and to be totally honest, the story that I wanted was a coming out story. We're told from the girl's point of view, and it's all her feeling hurt by the fact that the boy that she is in love with doesn't love her back. I also didn't like, there are multiple times when various people say to this character, oh, it's just a phase. Oh, well, you're only 14, you can't actually know if you're gay yet. Yes, he can, and no, it isn't. And that I just felt like it hadn't aged well. And like I said, I am trying to be considerate with this one. I think when it was written in 2003, they were the types of things and the discussions that people would have been having. It's not to say they were correct at the time, but I feel like they were realistic to the time. But just reading it now, it just kind of gave me the ick. Like I said, I just don't feel like it aged well. So 2.5 stars for Kiss. Then I read my worst book of the year, Love Lessons. 1 star. I hated this book. This book offended me. So in this book, we are following a 14-year-old girl. She starts at a new school. She has a crush on her teacher. Her teacher reciprocates. And this is where and the thing is, I have a whole rant on this. I even made a TikTok on this, which kind of like blew up for me. I'm really not active on TikTok. It just gave me the ick so hard. And it's just, this was written in, the thing that really like got me, this was written in 2005. I was 16 in 2005. This main character is 14. I think she turns 15. So again, like, I know what it was like to be in secondary school in 2005. I also know when I was at school, there was a teacher who was fired for sleeping with a sixth former. Like, student-teacher relations happened in the early 2000s, but the teachers didn't get off scot-free. And that's what annoyed me, is that the girl was seen as the girl was the one who was punished, basically. She had to leave school. The teacher had nothing happen to him. And yeah, I really disliked this book with every fibre of my being. Like I said, it offended me. I have since seen, there's an interview with Jacqueline Wilson where she has said that she regrets this book and that she wouldn't have written this book today, and that she is considering even going back and editing it, which I am in support of, because this book, please don't read this book. And if you do choose to read this book, please be very aware of its content as you go in, and please do not give this to a teenager. Yeah. Worst book of the year. I don't give 1-star reviews, like, ever. But yes, that was probably my first 1-star review. So we then had to pick ourselves up and keep on going, and we read something better. I picked up The Blood Traitor by Lynette Nonny. This one got 4 stars. This one I really enjoyed. This is book 3 in the Prison Healer series. I have really enjoyed that series. Book 1 was fantastic. Book 2 was good. Book 3 was, again, really good. Kind of got a bit of a sort of Throne of Glass Hunger Games element. We're following our main character, who is a prisoner. She is a healer within a prison. There is a new prisoner and who claims this like trial, whereas if she can complete all of the trials, she gets released from prison. But our main character offers to kind of stand in for this new prisoner. It all goes from there. There is magic in this world. There are good and evil. There's a lot of political tension, and there's a lot of crossovers in the political world where you kind of don't know who to root for, and this series is fantastic. I highly recommend. We're then reaching towards the end of the month, and I'm talking about some of the books that I read for work. Sorry, my angles changed slightly. So I read The Days I Loved You Most by Amy Neff, which will pop up here. Again, this is one that I read for work. I've been paid to read it, so I'm not giving you a rating or a review. I would say this book is a kind of contemporary fiction following an older couple throughout their life and also reaching the end of their life. If you're a fan of The Notebook, I think this is a book for you. I then needed another palette cleanse, and I picked up Unfortunately Yours by Tessa Bailey. I was a bit apprehensive going into this one because I wasn't the biggest fan of Secretly Yours, but this one was amazing. I gave it 4.5 stars. Really loved it. Had a great time. I should say this one follows the sister of the male main character from Secretly Yours. She is a Napa heiress, and she basically will come into her trust fund when she is employed and married. The guy who she does not like, but is a ex-Navy SEAL turned Vinter, who he needs a loan from the bank, and the bank manager basically laughed him out. But if he is attached to our main character and her name, then he's much more likely to be able to get his loan. So it's a marriage, kind of marriage of convenience. I had a fantastic time. I loved this book. Then we read the final 3 books of the month, which were Powerless, Powerful, and Reckless. So I am working on this series. So again, I'm not going to give you ratings or reviews, other than saying that I had a really good time reading these. I do have a reading vlog where I read all 3 of them in a weekend. Powerless, this one we are following, basically we're in a world where there are like magical kind of superheroes. These people gained magic powers after having like this virus, and there are people who do not have magic powers. And the people who do not have magic powers are seen as lesser than the magical people, and the king, who is magical, decides he's going to kill all of the non-magic people to have this kind of elite world. Our main character, Payden, is ordinary. She does not have magic powers, but she is kind of getting by pretending to be psychic, which is like a low-level magic. She does that by, kind of similar to Sherlock Holmes, basically by observing people. So she sees that that someone's got a tan line around their finger and he's in a bad mood, so she surmises your wife has left you. It was probably your fault because you're a bit of a dick. This then moves into a kind of trial situation. So Payden accidentally saves the life of the prince, and she then gets noticed and is then kind of like an entrant into this trial. Similarly to like the Hunger Games, it is not a fight to the death, but a lot of people will die, and basically we have an enemies to lovers plotline, and it's a fun time. We've then got the novella Powerful. This one follows Payden's best friend, and it is the same timeline as Powerless, so it's happening at the same time, but from the friend's perspective. I did have a great time reading this one. I really liked, again, like seeing it from the other perspective. Unfortunately, the one question that I really kind of wanted answered by this one was not answered, but hey ho, that is what it is. I still had a good time with this one. And then finally, Reckless. So Reckless follows straight after the end of Powerless. Payden is on the run, and again, there's a second kind of enemies to lovers plotline, and I honestly think that was done really well, because something that I find so difficult with enemies to lovers, which is why I'm not really the biggest fan of enemies to lovers, is that you have all this tension of the enemies getting close. And this is true enemies to lovers as well, where it is knife to the throat, it's 50-50 whether I'm going to stab you or kiss you. Could be either. And so you kind of throughout like the first book, you'll have all this tension, but then they become lovers and it just kind of, there's then no tension for the rest of the books. Because of the ending of Powerless, we could restart that enemies to lovers plotline in Reckless, and obsessed. I loved it. I was just as invested with that enemies to lovers line in Reckless. Even though we'd already seen them come together, they'd come apart again and we could see that, and yes, brilliant. Yes, on this one, Payden's on the run. She's being chased by the Prince Kai, and I had a really good time with this series. I do think if you like YA fantasy, if you are a fan of Throne of Glass or a fan of the Hunger Games, this series would be for you. It's a lot of fun. Is it the best written piece of fantasy out there? No, it isn't. I would say, honestly, if you liked Fourth Wing, read this series. Because if you can put up with the poor writing in Fourth Wing, then this is great. It is better written than Fourth Wing. Anyway, that was my wrap up for July. Let's see if I can stack all of these books up and show you what I read. So this is my July wrap up, 17 books, quite a lot of 5 stars and 4.5 stars. I think fantastic reader month. I had a great time. Please do let me know if you have read anything that I have mentioned today. What did you think of them? Do you agree with my ratings? If you like this video, please leave me a like, subscribe down below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.